Hey guys, welcome back to the Lake Norman Business Podcast. This week we have Todd Youngblood as our guest. Todd is a serial entrepreneur, very successful, recently built and exited Sleep.me. We're going to talk to him a bit about his journey, some of the highs and lows of what it takes to build and scale a business successfully. Enjoy the episode. Welcome back to the Lake Norman Business Podcast. I'm Danny Decker. Ryan Weber. We're joined this week by Todd Youngblood, most recently from Sleep.me, but a serial entrepreneur and a good friend. So Todd, thanks for being here.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So most recently, Sleep.me, correct? Did I get that right? So
Yep.
what was that? What was the deal there?
So my wife and I started a company called Chili Technology, LLC, back in 2007. And we bootstrapped that thing for a decade until we took on our first seed round in 2017 and took on a big investor in 2020, KKR, and kind of grew that thing from, bootstrapped entrepreneurial e-commerce, basically converted it into an e-commerce business, most known for selling the chili pad, which is something that Tim Ferriss talked about in his book, Tools of Titans, back in 2012.
Very cool. I didn't know Tim Ferriss gave you guys a shout out. What was the chili pad for people that don't know?
Temperature control for sleep. So it's still in the market, still being sold today on sleep.me. And it's kind of a fun journey where my wife and I, Tara, have run businesses together for 20 years. And her vision for Chili Technology, or for the company at the time, Cryo, was bigger than mine. And it's like, hey, sounds like it's your turn to be CEO. And really converted it from being a hardware company to being a sleep improvement company. And so when we talk about the technology, if it makes sense to do that, it's mind-blowing, cutting-edge, super cool stuff that she, with her background in physics, just had this vision on how do we help the world sleep better.
I'm so excited to meet you today because my wife's law partner talked about the chili pad like it was God's gift to his sleep. And I mean, the man was in love with his chili pad, would like try and pack it up and take it when they went on vacations.
Oh, for sure. It's like the only, like, the biggest downside on the product is it makes the vacations less vacation. That's wonderful. Yeah. So, I mean, it's temperature control for sleep. So one side of the bed can be cold, the other side can be hot. But when you sleep cold, when you sleep at the right temperature, basically, you can fall asleep faster and you get way better sleep, like 30% better sleep, better REM and deep sleep. So it's like a huge quality gain. That's when we worked with military. We worked with, in fact, it's been in two presidents have slept on the product for cognitive recovery. Prince Harry, like George Lucas, like I said, Tim Ferriss, Dave Asprey, Rick Rubin, all kinds of these super wide spectrum folks that we've had the opportunity to get to know, sometimes on a personal level, because of how they've used the product.
So how did you guys get into that? Like, did you just wake up one day and just be like, man, I really didn't sleep well last night. Let's do something about this. Like,
I was hot. I was cold. I want a chili pad.
So basically in 2005, I was just sleeping crazy hot. And so I'd wake up, and anyone that's had night sweats or woken up like really hot, it's miserable. You wake up and you're sweaty and gross, and the sheets are sweaty, and you're like, it was terrible. And you were doing the pillow burn between Tara and I so she could still sleep and I wouldn't like burn her out of bed. And they're like, this has got to be fixable. So 52 years ago, my uncle invented the waterbed. So so I was around crazy sleep stuff like my whole life, or it was in the background that sleep's a big business and everybody sleeps, and it's fairly tech devoid, right? There's just not a lot of tech actually in the sleep space compared to the rest of our 24-hour, highly connected, highly technical world. Sleep is like, you just go to bed and you lay on and you have your pillow and your sheets and blankets, and like, that's it. So we're like, hey, there's really a big opportunity here. So it was a brutal, 10-year period where we had other businesses, thankfully, but it was a one-way investment for like 8 years. Didn't take a dollar out of the business, only invested money into the business from really 2005 until like 2013 was the first time we took a dollar out of the business for like us getting paid. So it was a very long journey.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. And when I first met you, got to know you, it was probably around 2017, 2018. And so you guys had obviously accomplished a whole lot, but I just remember like, you were constantly trying to solve the next challenge and get to the next level. You spent a lot of time flying back and forth between Charlotte and various parts of China, right? Like,
That's right. Yeah, 2.5 million miles is what I've flown in the last 25 years. So I was literally going to Asia every other month for over a decade. And that's what it took to grow the business, and that's what it took to do the product development, maintain relationships with the factory. I've flown all around the world meeting with distributors in Australia and Japan and Europe and Korea. We've spent a lot of time working the angles of the business to try to maximize the opportunity.
yeah. And one of the things I've always appreciated about you, and I think is super relevant to really any business owner in any industry, is just your ability to solve a problem. And just like, I remember hearing stories about just like all the points where you could have been like, screw it, like this is impossible, this is too hard. And you've just always been relentless. Like
You-
talk about that.
Yeah, I do think from an entrepreneurial journey standpoint, we're all like entrepreneurs that are successful. I think they have the same problems everyone else has. The difference is like the grit and the determination or maybe stubbornness to just push through it. There was one period in 2013, end of 2013, early 2014, that we had the worst 6 months of our professional lives. We literally, within 6 months, we were sued. We're at a frivolous patent infringement lawsuit against us. We had an IRS audit. We had a $120,000 wire fraud issue where our controller wired money to the wrong bank account, basically got frauded. And Walmart canceled $1 million of product that was ready to ship for a different business. So any one of those three things could have killed us. And to have four of them happen within 6 months was just absolutely unbelievable. And you're like, you froze. You're like, we don't know what to do. The reality is you just get up and you go to work and you work on it and you figure it out. And so I do think our perspective today is really built around, if we could get through that period and survive it, we absolutely can get through anything, period. We can get through anything. So you get that experience that now we can look back to, as brutal as that period of time was. Look, it is not like that. This is way better. Like, we can fix whatever's in front of us.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, and everyone thinks that their problems might be small because they have a really small business, or their problems are huge because they've got a bigger business. But like, they're all the same problems. It's just problem solving. That's running a business.
That's right. And they talk about first order, second order, third order problems, and most of what we face really are first order, second order problems. They're not like the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's not 3 or 4 layers deep. They tend to be fairly surface problems. And the solutions aren't always obvious to start, but it's like, just keep working on it. Keep working on it. Like, that's our job as entrepreneurs, is to like fix the next problem. But I do think that's, when I think of like, what's my superpower, what am I really uniquely good at? It's really solving that next problem. It's like figuring out what's the angle to make progress on something you're stuck on.
And has that always been a trait of yours, like since childhood, or is that something you learned?
Yeah, I was definitely a rule breaker in childhood. Like, didn't follow a very straight path. I was pretty strong-willed, so I definitely wanted to figure out how I wanted to do stuff. And just because it was done a certain way, or my parents told me how to do it their way, it was sort of like, okay, that's great. Maybe that's what works for you, but I'm me. I'm going to figure out my own way. So I think so. I was very much into testing, so I saw the world sort of through my own lens.
I think so. Kind of pivoting here, you've been in tons of different businesses. You're entrepreneur, and a lot of the people that are listening to this are also small business owners, and they might not see the end in sight at some point, but down the road, they can't do their business forever. They want to exit their business and make some money because they sold their business. And, you were able to exit a business. Now we can't talk about terms or anything like that, but we can actually kind of hear the steps that you took to be able to do that successfully. So kind of how did you position yourself to be able to sell a business and actually do it successfully?
Yeah, definitely. So this is a third business we've exited. Was our exit in January from Sleep Me Inc. or Sleep.me. I think a lot of it has to do with, in the best scenario, you're always building your business to make it sellable, because if you're doing that, if you're operating your business with that mindset, you're going to be making decisions that are much easier to communicate down the road to a potential exit partner, or even if it's to your kids or whatever the transition plan is, depending on the business type. And when I say that, it really has to do with like the organizational, setting up systems, which are hard. They're really hard for any small business, particularly a sole proprietor, where you're like, why do we need a system? I'm the one that does it.
Right.
But if something were to happen to the operator, even if it's for a spouse to come in or a kid or, an employee, the way you maintain that sort of continuity of business is by establishing those basic business practices. Hey, this is how I respond to email. This is how I organize email. This is how I manage my to-dos. And I know, Danny, in the past I've asked you, like, hey, what tool do you use for this? How do you stay on top of your opens? And like just being curious when you talk to other business owners of what are best practices used by other people. Because as diverse as our businesses are, there's certain things that are the same, right? Your accounting, like every business has some accounting requirements just for filing taxes. Every business has to manage some customer relationship, some communication back. Like there's certain basic things, and to find those best practices and document them gets you a whole lot closer to being in a spot where you could sell your business.
Well, and you've always talked, and I think from as long as I've known, you've done a really good job about being intentional about surrounding yourself with, high performers and mastermind groups. And we were in EO together and just kind of talk about that and the value that, putting yourself in groups with, high performers who you can, learn things from and best practices. Talk about that for a minute, because I think that's super important at any size.
Yeah, I think one of the things that allowed me to be successful was being a consummate learner. And so even when I was, working in a big company with things that were fairly benign or not very interesting, to stay interested into things that you can learn more about. And where that applies really to your question is, I feel like when I am able to surround myself with other entrepreneurs or people that are working on things similar to me, I'm able to learn from them all the time. So I'm always looking to learn that next thing that I don't know about. So as far as surrounding yourself with people, there's this saying that you are more like the people you spend the most time with whatever, 6 people or
you're the average, the average of 5 people or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. And so that you're either averaging yourself up or you're averaging yourself down, and it's really easy to become complacent. And I've seen it. So I just turned 50 this year, actually in January. And so there's a lot, I'm thinking a lot about like, well, where am I spending the next 20 years, 30 years? Like, what does that look like? And how do I continue to stretch and not stay too comfortable in my peer groups or friend groups, comfortable with a fitness routine, whatever it is, to make sure that I'm uncomfortable enough to keep growing. And it's really easy when you get the great neighbors and great friends. How do you keep things dynamic enough to keep learning and growing? I think it's tough.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen by accident. I think it takes some intention and some effort to like keep things mixed up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it like, Todd, being as deeply in your business as you were for 18 years and then exiting it? And like,
What do you like? What do you do?
Yeah, where you're like, wow, I guess I don't have to worry about this anymore. Like, what is that like?
Yeah, it's strange. I'm still getting used to it for sure. I'm someone that I need to work. Like for me, I don't have the scenario where like I just retire one day and I just don't work. I find a lot of personal satisfaction of solving those next problems and figuring out the next thing. So my time gets filled up pretty quickly, remarkably. I signed up when we moved to the Point 2 years ago as a golf member, and I think I've played like 12 times in 2 years. Not a great. Someone else is giving me a hard time of like my cost per golf game.
Yeah,
Is
like $1,000 a game.
Exactly. It's so inexpensive because it's free. Not really. So I think where I'll be. I don't know where I'll be a year from now on this journey, but I do run another company right now. It's consulting and sales company, so that is taking some of my time. I'm enjoying spending more time with that business. But time will tell where I really dig in deep. This isn't our last rodeo. We're gonna figure out where we're gonna really do something together. I'm excited to start another business with Tara. We'll figure out when that's ready for prime time. But
yeah. I get a lot of, I feel a lot of similarities on that. Like Danny and I both sold a business basically within a month of each other in 2018. And I said, when I sold mine, I was like, I'm going to take a year. I don't need to work for a year. This is great. I'm going to, get to explore a bunch. I sold a gym. Like I played football in college and I owned a gym. Like it's what I knew. And I'm going to take a year. I'm going to go play around and figure out what I want to do. And I think I had sat around the house for a week and a half. And after 2 weeks, I was already like at the law firm doing the marketing. And I'm like, all right, well, that didn't last very long. That's a lot less than a lot less than a year. Yep. So it makes me smile of someone else that's like, yeah, I'm actually still busier than ever. And I just sold my business.
Well, I actually heard something on the radio the other day that was about, it was talking about personal relationships and how usually the beginning is sparkly and wonderful and amazing, and the end tends to be like awful and sorrowful and like not fun. And the reality is 90% of everything we live is the middle. It's the journey. Like it's totally not the destination.
Right.
And, for whether it's small business owners or parents or whatever, like finding a way to have fun through the grind is like, man, that is life. Like that's the secret sauce.
Yeah.
And I think that it makes work less painful.
Yeah.
More fun, more enjoyable because you're like, well, I like doing it because I've chosen to like doing it. It's not always fun.
Yeah. What are your perspectives and ideas and how you make it work of working with your spouse? We've had someone else talk about it. I do it. So like, I get it. I think it's a lot of small business owners do it. And so, it seems like you guys do pretty well with it. So how do you do it?
We have done well with it. Although, definitely the last year basically working for a private equity company or private equity backed company was brutal.
Uh-huh.
We didn't get to set our agendas. We didn't get to determine what we worked on to a great extent. We were reporting back to a much bigger company. That changed the dynamics between us, and it was not fun. We knew the stress wasn't sustainable. But we've, over the years, figured out some fun things, because you also work with your wife, Danny.
Yep.
We have some rules. One of those is we call it the 51% rule, because sometimes we won't agree on like some direction or some decision, but in every single case, someone believes more passionately about their position. So they get 51% of the vote. They get to choose. So like I want to do it this way. Well, I want to do it this way. Well, how much do you care? I'm like, well, I really don't care. I think it should be done this way. But if you care, go do it your way.
Yeah.
And like that's a big one. We've been in the sleep business for a long time. I'm a night owl. So for me, I want to get stuff off my chest before I go to bed. I work late. Tara is a morning person. So we would have bad habits before. We had to resolve we had to come up with a cutoff rule of when we had to stop talking business, because we'd be going through stuff and be like, oh, how was your day? Oh, it was fine. And it's like maybe 9 o'clock and she's getting ready to go to bed.
Yeah, you're ramping up.
Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, we got, some cash flow bumps and I'm not sure we can make payroll on Monday or whatever, at the end of the week. And she'll think about that all night, not sleep, churn on it. And at like 7 o'clock in the morning, she's like, she's going off and like all the things she's thought about, last night. I'm like, whoa. I need a cup of coffee. I need to be out of bed. Like, this is a no work zone.
Yeah. My wife and I are opposite. So I get that too. So I'm the morning, she's the night. And if you've ever tried to argue with a lawyer about your stance on something, I don't advise that one. Like marry someone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
I usually lose those ones.
Yeah, I would bet. No, but we still enjoy it. Actually, even the last year, we were starting to think, well, maybe we're not really compatible to work together anymore because of the stress and a lot of just business dynamics with our team. It was becoming less fun. And we were thinking, well, maybe that phase is over. We've just kind of grown apart enough where that we can't do that. But what we found is we took a week on vacation. Like, let's not talk about the sleep business at all. Let's just make sure we just truly take some time to be together. And then we started brainstorming, like blue sky thinking of like, if we could do anything, what would we do? And came up with this new business that was like amazing and inspiring and exciting. And all of a sudden we're basically working together and it felt amazing. So then like, wait, maybe it's not actually working together, it's the type of work we're doing together. And it became really unsustainable, but changing it suddenly like, hey, we're good. Game on.
What are you more passionate about? Like the startup of like generating a new idea or taking something and just building it massive?
Oh, well, that's a good question. So I think I learned through this last venture that when it gets above a certain scale, it's like the people that got you here won't get you there kind of scenario. And a lot of times as you're growing a company, you want to be grateful for the people that put in all the hard work to get you going. But realistically, they tend to be generalists, not specialists. And as you grow your business, you need more specialists. I'm not a very good specialist. I'm definitely a generalist. I take out a big hammer and whack away and make progress on things. But when it really comes down to the very defined skill to go, I think honestly, running our e-commerce business is a great example. When we decided to stop selling retailers, it was scary as heck because that was 70% of our revenue, and we had to walk away from it to go grow our e-commerce business because we had to commit to like one or the other. And we're like, we're going to succeed or fail, but this is what our business needed. I got into really understanding e-commerce marketing and figured out how to drive your engine and all the right analytics to learn our business 20x in 4 years because we committed to focusing on the things that we needed to learn, which was hard for me because I'd never done e-commerce before. I had no idea. But I had to figure it out. And then I realized that frankly, I was good to getting it there. And then someone else needed it to take over. I wasn't good enough at the small stuff.
Yeah.
So long way to answer that question, but I like the early stage.
That's me. Like I want to like create a little baby bird and then give it to somebody and be like, go let it fly, go enjoy.
Yeah. And I talk to like entrepreneurs a lot, and there's a lot of people who have great ideas, but I think it's the challenge is helping build that baby bird their nest first, so that they've got actually the ability to survive in the wild. A lot of people take the idea, they're like, oh, I've got this great idea, I'm going to make millions. Like you might, but until who's going to do the hard work to overcome the first 100 problems before that idea really can make money.
Yeah, no, that's really good. So we're here in 2023, looking back over the last 18 years. If you could go back to, was it 2007 that you guys got into the sleep business?
Sleep space, yeah.
So what would you have done differently? Or what if you could go back and give yourself some advice, 2007, Todd, some advice, would you do anything differently? Would you approach it any differently?
Yeah, I think we would have gotten into e-commerce a lot sooner. It was scary. I didn't know it. So I think being hard on yourself, not just to follow what you already know and what you're already good at, but to think through what the business needs, what's right for the business, not just have the business follow your personal skill sets. I think that'd be the biggest one. And probably I wish Tara and I had found a way for her to have more of a lead in the business sooner. Super smart person, very capable, clear visionary, that was sort of behind the scenes because I think I didn't know how to amplify her voice. She should have been out front way sooner. And that was just sort of I maybe took for granted what she was good at and what I didn't realize what the market was missing by not having her out in front.
That's interesting. And like, what is it that, like, maybe if you could give us an example, like what did you start to see where you realized like, wow, she really needs to be the visionary here?
Honestly, it was some of the patents she started filing in 2017, where she went through a period of sleeplessness. She talked about in her TEDx talk. And part of that healing process and fixing her sleep and fixing her health, she got in super deep in the research. And the patents she started filing in 2017 were about using AI with a real-time feedback loop to automate the sleep improvement process using temperature, sound therapy, light therapy, PMF treatment, like grounding, Faraday cage, all kinds of freaking amazing technology. Like the product that she envisioned and basically patented, you can't even really build that yet because the technology, like it's known, but it's pretty comprehensive. Like I think getting my head around all the work she did to validate the sleep improvement capability of each of those technologies uniquely, and then what would happen if you combine them at the same time. I'm like, unbelievable. And then patented it. It was like a 250-page patent filing because the discovery work that had to go in to validate that these aren't just her opinions. They're proven fact. They've been researched and vetted, and to like go through that process, like, wow.
That's
Cool
amazing.
stuff.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, so Todd, so our audience, small business owners, a lot of them not in the e-commerce space, but I think a lot of these principles of, building a successful business just apply regardless, right? And so you've obviously accomplished a lot. What would you, if we could leave kind of one piece of advice for somebody that's in the early stages of starting their business, what would you want to tell them?
Nobody knows everything. And that, like, I think our opportunities as entrepreneurs is to just figure out the next thing. Everybody has to learn it. So the fact that you just don't know how to set up a website, you don't know how to manage your Google listing so you can update your store's hours on Google. Like, yeah, no one knew that 10 years ago, right? So like there's this thing of like, because I don't know it, it's just hard to do. Yeah, it's probably just really hard. And there's some things they're just hard. And it doesn't mean that you just need to take the time to do it. And so it's prioritizing the things that really, really affect your business versus the things that don't, that you could spend time on, that you're really spinning your wheels. Like, it's a balance. But I think people really need to know that everything in front of them is fixable. And if they can't figure it out, get someone around them that knows it. People are really generally very generous with their time. They just don't want it wasted, right? So even people that are like super busy or super successful, they still want to see other people be successful. Most people aren't that selfish.
Yeah.
So if you can't figure it out, ask someone that probably knows. They'll probably, if they can't help you, they'll know someone that can,
Yeah,
Love it.
absolutely.
Well, Todd, congrats on the success and looking forward to seeing what's next from you and your partner. And thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks guys. It was a pleasure. Super fun.
Appreciate it.